It's Thursday, January 9th, 2025. Have you read from your Bibles today? I am Ronald, and I'm continuing in the book of Job, chapters 21 through 23. Now, in chapter 21, 2 out of 3 rounds of talks with Job's friends have ended. So that's a total of 6 speeches heard. And today our reading opened with Job's reply to Zophar's second speech. Now, his friends have been trying to point out that since all these bad things have been happening to him, it must be because he's acting wickedly somehow. Now, this kind of thinking comes naturally to us, doesn't it? Or me, anyhow. Have you ever noticed that the idea that if you do good things, God will give you what you want, but if you do bad things, God will punish you? When things don't go your way, do you ever wonder if God is punishing you? If we're not careful, we could live out the same mindset that Job's friends had, that if you walk uprightly with God, you can use that as sort of a bargaining chip to get what you want from him. Because surely good work equals a happy life, right? Now, the brilliance of Job's story is that it points out the error in our thinking, and it also points out that true wickedness that lies in the heart of our motives when we try to use God as the means to get what we want. And the reality of Job brings to light here is that our lot in life is not a good way to determine the state of our hearts. Good things do happen to wicked people. You've probably witnessed a lot of that same stuff that Job has mentioned here. Maybe you've been frustrated by that too, wondering why wicked people prosper. It doesn't seem fair. Fair. Now we're getting somewhere. What's fair, and do we want fair? Let me tell you a story that I read a while back from RC Sproul. He goes on to say, "My favorite illustration of how callous we have become with respect to mercy, love, and grace of God comes from the second year of my teaching career when I was given the assignment of teaching 250 college freshmen an introductory course on the Old Testament. On the first day of the class, I gave the students a syllabus and I said, you have to write 3 short-term papers, 5 pages each. The first one is due September 30th, when you come to class, and the second one is October 30th, and the third is November 30th. Make sure that you have them done by the due date, because if you don't, unless you are physically confined to the infirmary or in the hospital, or unless there is a death in the immediate family, you will get an F on that assignment. Does everybody understand that?" And in unison, they all replied, "Yes." On September 30th, 225 of my students came in with their term paper. There were 25 terrified freshmen who came in trembling, and they said, "Oh, Professor Sproul, we didn't budget our time properly. We haven't made the transition from high school to college the way we should have. Please don't flunk us. Please give us a few more days to get our papers finished." I said, "Okay, this once I will give you a break. I will let you have 3 more days to get your papers in, but don't let it happen again." "Oh, no, we won't let it happen again," they said. "Thank you so much." Then, on October 30th, this time 200 students came in with their term papers, but 50 students didn't have them, and I asked, "Where are your papers?" And they said, "Well, you know how it is, Professor. We're having midterms, and we had all kinds of assignments for other classes, plus it's homecoming week. We're just running a little behind. Please give us just one more chance." And I asked, "You don't have your papers? Do you remember what I said last time? I said, don't even think about not having it this time. And now 50 of you don't have them done?" "Oh yes," they said, "we know." I said, "Okay, I will give you 3 days to turn in your papers. But that is the last time I extend the due date." Do you know what happened? They started singing spontaneously. "We love you, Professor Sproul." Oh yes, we do. I was the most popular professor on the campus at that time. But then came November 30th. This time 100 of them came with their term paper, but 150 of them did not. And I watched them walk in as cool and as casual as they could be. So I said, "Johnson." "What?" he replied. "Do you have your paper?" "Don't worry about it, Professor," he responded. "I'll have it for you in a couple of days." I picked up the most dreadful object in a freshman's experience, my little black grade book. I opened it up and I asked, "Johnson, you don't have your term paper?" He said, "No." I said, "F." And I wrote that in the grade book. Then I asked Nicholson, "Do you have your term paper?" "No, I don't have it." F. "Jenkins, where is your term paper?" "I don't have it." F. Then, out of the midst of this crowd, someone shouted, "That's not fair." I turned around and asked, "Fitzgerald, was that you who said that?" He said, "Yeah, it's not fair." I asked, "Weren't you late with your paper last month?" "Yeah," he responded. "Okay, Fitzgerald, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If it's justice you want, it's justice you'll get." So I changed his grade from October to an F. And when I did that, there was a gasp in the room, and I asked, "Who else wants justice?" I didn't get any takers. Now, there was a song in the musical My Fair Lady titled, "I've grown accustomed to her face." Well, those students have grown accustomed to my grace. The first time that they were late with their papers, they were amazed by grace. The second time, they were no longer surprised, they basically assumed it. And by the third time, they demanded it. They had come to believe that grace was expected to give them, like entitlement, that they deserved it. Now, I took that occasion to explain to my students, do you know what you did when you said that's not fair? You confused justice with grace. The minute we think that anybody owes us justice, a bell should go off in our head to alert us that we are no longer thinking about grace. Because grace, by definition, is something we don't deserve. It is something we cannot possibly deserve. We have no merit before God, only demerit. If God should ever treat us justly outside of Christ, we would perish. Our feet would surely slip. Now back to Job's story. Remember when we talked about grace and mercy and what we think we deserve? You come to realize that you don't want fairness. We want God's grace and mercy. In the big picture, don't you want God's justice? What about those students who did hand in their assignments on time? Does that count for anything? These back and forth conversations between Job and his friends, especially as God had shown us in the very beginning that he had allowed this to happen to Job. We must remember that God is sovereign. Even when we cannot see or understand why certain things are happening, we must remember that God is in control. He is always in control. And no matter how we feel, whether we feel his presence or not, God is still in control, and we should put our total trust in him. God knows what's going on, and I think deep down, Job knows that God will find a way out and bring resolution. Now that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you all, and I wish you a great day.